So now we have Brew. It's going to come on screen, I think, and she's going to be giving us a short report about Pride by the Ponds. Brew.
I'll give a very short report about Bernadette O'Malley standing for Party for Women, which is absolutely brilliant. And then I'm going to play 3 videos, from one from Australia, one from New Zealand, and one from the United States. So they're news updates. I'll just tell you what Bernadette did. So Bernadette normally does tech, but she's out campaigning in Southwest Hertfordshire, which is one of the constituencies where people are standing for election on Thursday in the UK. She's standing for Party for Women, and I went on Monday along with quite a few women and actually some men who support Bernadette to hear her in what's called a hustings in the UK. So questions are asked of the political candidates, and the candidates have to answer. And she was just absolutely brilliant. There'd be questions. They had no idea what the question would be. They'd say things like, what is your political party going to do about sewage in the River Chess? And Bernadette just thought on her feet really quickly and would say, well, sewage, it's very important that we have good data on sewage, and we don't want sewage in the River Chess at all. And it's also very important that we have good data on how many men are in women's prisons or on single-sex spaces. She was just there were loads of questions, and she just brought everything round to the importance of sex over gender identity. And she gradually got more and more people in the room clapping. So it started off with just there were 2 of us in the middle, and then more and more and more people were clapping. And as she made the arguments that it is dangerous for women and unfair for us to have men who say they're women doing intimate searches or doing intimate care in hospitals, more and more people were clapping, and more women. So it's just, it's the best political meeting I've been to ever in my life. I was so happy that she's doing this standing. And then the best clap she got, which was totally brilliant, was when she gave the slogan of Party of Women, which is, she somehow managed to let herself say it, doing that transformation of the question into something that was about our issue. When she said, no woman has a penis, no man has a vagina, non-binary is nonsense, and transitioning children is a form of child abuse. Got about 70% of the audience clapping loudly and cheering. And I felt like this is really, really significant that it's happening. There are 15 candidates, and Bernadette's one of them, which is why the tech's not going so well today for us, because I'm doing it. Anyway, go Bernadette, as someone said. And there's another on Monday, so I'm going to go along to that. And well, just brilliant. And I would recommend anyone who's thinking, if this does keep going, thinking of standing, it's absolutely great. Okay, I'm now going to play you the video for the news from the United States.
I was going to start off with the big news about the U.S. Supreme Court, but I'm going to let Kara take that away in just a minute. She has a lot more expertise in that area. So moving on Friday, U.S. signatories were invited to join Kara, along with special guests Riley Gaines and Paula Scanlon, for a webinar during which recent developments regarding Title IX were discussed. The webinar, Let's Talk Title IX, was recorded and hopefully will be available on our YouTube channel soon. The Our Bodies, Our Sports Take Back Title IX bus tour most recently held events in Columbus, Ohio, Charleston, West Virginia, and Chapel Hill, North Carolina. Unfortunately, following the Chapel Hill event, IWF reported that overnight vandals violated nearly every inch of the bus, stating that it had been egged and defaced with profanity and anti-woman messages. They attributed the attack to radical gender ideologues on a mission to erase womanhood who sought to silence the women speaking up. Undaunted, the tour continues with the rally scheduled later today in Washington, D.C., during which Kara and board member Irene Lawrence are scheduled to speak. The tour ends its June run with stops in Virginia Beach, Virginia, and Nashville, Tennessee, on the 27th and 28th, respectively. As anticipated, Arizona Governor Katie Hobbs has vetoed SB 1511, the Detransitioner Bill of Rights. Most disappointingly, she did so with a single-line explanation, which reads, "This bill is unnecessary and would create a privacy risk for patients." In a somewhat alarming development, it's been reported that Casey Goonan, the man suspected of firebombing a Berkeley campus police car and carrying out other arson incidents on university grounds, allegedly in retaliation for police actions against Gaza solidarity encampments, is the same man who was arrested for vandalizing the Hilton Hotel sign with a hammer during a protest outside of our convention in San Francisco last year. Goonan has been arrested and was scheduled to appear Thursday in Alameda County Court for arraignment on arson charges. His bail has been set at $1 million. Last week, I spoke about Eitan Haim, the whistleblower now facing a 4-count felony indictment for revealing that Texas Children's Hospital had secretly continued medicalizing minors after publicly pledging to stop all such interventions. The indictment alleges Haim obtained unauthorized access to personal information of pediatric patients under false pretenses and with intent to cause malicious harm to TCH. If convicted, he could receive up to 10 years in federal prison and be fined a maximum of $250,000. At his arraignment on Monday, Dr. Haim pleaded not guilty to the charges against him, and a fund set up for his legal defense has now reached over $848,000 in donations. This week, Christopher Rufo at the City Journal broke the story about another Texas Children's Hospital whistleblower who has come forward. Registered nurse Vanessa Sivage alleges that doctors at the hospital's gender clinic violated Texas law by illegally billing Medicaid for gender-affirming treatments. Should air quote that. The Medicaid fraud claims are currently being investigated by Texas Attorney General Ken Paxton. And finally, Bruce Blakeman, the Nassau County executive who earlier this year issued an executive order prohibiting male athletes from competing against girls at all 100 sports facilities run by the county, is persisting in his efforts to protect women's sports. Last month, his executive order was struck down by the Nassau County Supreme Court on grounds that the order exceeded his authority. Blakeman responded by introducing legislation that would accomplish the same thing. 2 weeks ago, the bill advanced out of committee and is slated to move to a vote before the full legislature, which gets underway on June 24th. The Republican-dominated legislature is expected to pass the latest bill into law, county law that is, and of course the New York Civil Liberties Union has already threatened legal action if the county continues to push the measure forward. And that's all I have today. Thank you.
So the next one is Megan from Australia.
The Queensland Births, Deaths and Marriages Registration Act came into effect on the 24th of June. The law allows a person to alter their sex on legal documents such as their birth certificate to align with what they say their gender identity is. This includes non-binary gender identities. So there are more options than just changing from female to male or male to female. Parents can choose also how they identify themselves in their parenting role on their child's birth certificate. So a woman, for example, could choose to be listed as the father. A man could choose to be listed as the mother. And someone with court-ordered parental responsibility for a child can make applications on that child's behalf as well. On the 20th of June, journalist Bernard Lane published the results of his FOI request that showed that Australia's health minister was actually advised by his staff on the 16th of April, after publication of the Cass Review, that it was relevant to Australian gender treatment and that the Australian guidelines had basically failed review. The advice to the minister also provided general warnings regarding interventions such as puberty blockers, saying that there is a lack of robust evidence on the long-term benefits and outcomes. Since then, however, the minister has claimed publicly that CAS is not relevant to Australia because of, quote, different care pathways. And a health department official told Parliament in June that the Australian environment was different from the UK. Note that in 2023, our guidelines actually became even more lax and advised GPs to commence hormone therapy on teenagers without multidisciplinary backup or specialists if they felt they had sufficient expertise or skill. This minister is the one that the Tasmanian government has asked to conduct an inquiry into child gender interventions, but note that they are from different political parties. There was a good Herald Sun report on children being socially transitioned at schools and parents not being informed. June has been a month in Australia for media articles. There is no media blackout anymore. 2 cases regarding the Sex Discrimination Act are still on foot. Lesbian Action Group is coming up, and Tickle and Giggle should hopefully receive its judgment next month. 3 family court matters regarding child gender intervention that I know of. 1 vilification and discrimination case for misgendering and criticising a man feeding his baby chemically stimulated discharge. At least 1 wrongful dismissal matter for GC views. I might be forgetting some, but there are a number of important court cases in Australia to keep an eye on over the next 6 months. A coronial inquest into the suicides of 5 people who identified as trans in and around 2021 is ongoing in Victoria. Last week, it was expanded in response to findings that 1 man had been damaged by an orchiectomy procedure done by an inexperienced backyard operator, and that this damage may have contributed to the decision to suicide. The reporting has focused blame on the barriers to accessing these kinds of surgeries through authorised medical providers. So the Premier said, what for me was really distressing in reading that report was that young transgender people feel that they couldn't get the support they need in more formal systems. We have to work very, very hard to provide them with care and support and love. So it's being used to support more intervention. Dr. Cass is giving a webinar with the National Association of Practicing Psychiatrists on the 2nd of July, and registrations are still open. And a member of the New South Wales Legislative Council, Greg Donnelly, gave a speech in Parliament in support of women's sports and has launched a public petition against the still on foot Equality Bill for New South Wales residents. It's open until the 10th of September in response to the committee's handballing of the issue back to Parliament for further debate, but it's a parliamentary petition, so only New South Wales residents can sign it. Thanks very much.
So we've got now a report from New Zealand.
Hi, I'm Shemaine Delavares from Aotearoa, New Zealand. Okay, a lot of material here today. The first thing was there are plans for pretty much a giant brothel in Queenstown, which is a very scenic area of the country. Oral submissions are being made, and the Catherine Healy from the Sex Workers Collective in New Zealand has spoke in favour of the changes. Of course, it's a full decrim environment. Just a note that in 2003, the Prostitution Reform Bill, which brought in full decrim into Aotearoa, was brought in and pushed by our first cross-dressing male MP, Georgina Bayer. So she or he gifted us with that particular form of legislation. But there's been huge pushback particularly from Wahine Toa Rising, which is a prostitutes advocacy collective, which is fully against the decriminalisation. And they are lobbying and fighting against Queenstown's decision to open up what has the potential to be New Zealand's largest brothel, or the largest brothel in the South Pacific. Mm-hmm. We've got Sal Grover coming over, and we're on the 19th of no, it can't be on the 19th of June, but the tickets went on sale on the 19th of June. So that's a major event coming up, as well as the Women's Rights Party annual conference. And there are a number of important speakers. Sal will actually be zooming into the conference. And among the other speakers, there's Di Landry from Mana Wahine Kōrero, who are a Indigenous Māori Wahine women's group that vehemently oppose sex self-ID in New Zealand. At the moment, one of the major issues being kicked around Parliament is the question New Zealand First are pushing for the coalition government to come through on its promise to ban men from entering female sports. But there seems to be no appetite for it at all, apart from New Zealand First, with the government saying that it's not going to make any changes to that. And there's been a lot of, quite a Twitter storm over comments made by Labour Party MP Willie Jackson, pretty much saying, who cares about women's sports? It's not the All Blacks, it's not the Warriors. You know, the more transgender players, the better. So that's been quite a thing. Resist Gender Education has published an open letter to the Ministry of Education countering the claims of the Mental Health Foundation about the RSC guidelines and asking the ministry to remove them. And it's signed by a large number of gender critical groups, including WDI. So also the Law Commission's proposals about gender in the Human Rights Act is coming up on the 20th, well, late June, that'll be tomorrow. I'm sorry, I've got another note here. Our Speak Up for Women are doing Zoom workshops about supporting gender they've got, but, you know, I'm not sure about that, going into the Human Rights Act on the grounds of, about supporting gender going into the Human Rights Act on the grounds that they think that this provides the opportunity to clearly define sex in such legislation. So that's all from New Zealand today. Thanks.